Good morning, everybody. My name is Caroline, and I work for Anglican Water as part of the education team. I'm joined this morning by my colleague, Elizabeth, from our carbon neutrality team. We are going to be opening for questions, so if you do have an opportunity to put some questions on, please do put them in the chat. And then we are going to be opening a poll, so please, if you could open the poll for us now, please do vote in our poll, and we were speaking about it a bit later on. So let's get straight into it. We see the headlines screaming at us from all forms, across all forms of media. We see the oceans, we see the melting ice caps, we see flooding, we see drought, we see fires. And at one point we thought it might be infrastructure where the countries didn't have that infrastructure. But as time's going on, those headlines are coming from Australia, or they're coming from New Zealand, or they're coming from America. So we can see that they're not just those countries where the infrastructure may not exist. And if we even look at our own country, we can start to see the impact that we're having. If we look at the Anglican Water region, which we live in, we are the driest region in the whole of the UK. And despite the fact that we are the driest region, our population is increasing. Our demand for water is increasing through agriculture. And looking at our geology, 28% of our water, so our coastline, is below sea level. And with rising sea levels, that's a big problem for us. So if you start to look at your own area, I'm sure you will find that there are definite issues for you, but it is there, we can't avoid it. And that climate change is starting to translate into our weather. If we look at our weather patterns for this year, February, the wettest month that we had in the whole of the UK, followed by May, 266 hours of sunshine. And then if we hop forward to the 3rd of October, well, the wettest day on record since 1891, enough water fell on that day to fill Loch Ness. And so that really leads us into the title of our talk this morning, Water, Water. Too much? Water, water. Too little? So can we just get it right? And on that note, I'm going to pass you back to our carbon expert, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Caroline, and good morning, everybody. So Caroline just flagged up some headlines there, but what you'll also probably have noticed, as I have in the last couple of years, certainly is that climate change is really getting up there on the agenda. We see it publicised a lot more and making the newspaper headlines. And climate change is to emissions within the atmosphere causing warming. In fact, we now have more carbon in the atmosphere than at any point in history, and man-made emissions are thought to be a significant contributor above and beyond that which is produced naturally. So since the Industrial Revolution especially, we've seen temperature rises of just over 1 degree, and the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, advises that we shouldn't exceed 1.5 degrees if we're to sort of avoid the worst impacts from climate change. So Caroline showcased the headlines, and we seem to be experiencing more extreme weather, and the risk of those more extreme weather events are likely to increase with climate change. And that's going to affect a lot of things, but one of those is how we will manage water. So we often refer to the Earth as the blue planet, and it can seem that there is an abundance of water around. In fact, 71% of the Earth's surface is covered in water. But if we consider where that water is, we see a lot of that is within the oceans, and some is tied up in the ice caps and glaciers. So actually the water available for us to use is quite small, and water available for use as drinking water is actually less than 1%. So water availability is becoming less predictable, and if we couple this with increase in demand, we find that water stressed areas are going to be put under more pressure. As Caroline alluded to, that's not somebody else's problem. We see that here within the UK as well. And excuse me, within the Anglican Water region, which is covering the east of England, we think that climate change is already causing a reduction of around 38 megalitres of water today in supply and demand balance. And that's the equivalent to the town size of, say, Plymouth. And we think that if we take no actions, that by 2045 we'll be at 144 megalitre per day deficit, which is the equivalent to around 1 million people's supply. But on a UK-wide scale, the National Framework for Water Resources, which is something that's put together by the Environment Agency, says that we'll need additional water in supply by 2050, and that's accounting for the impacts of climate change, population growth and environmental protection, and we'll be looking at around 3,500 million litres a day. But that's just the water that's available to us. Conversely, as again we saw in the headlines, warmer and wetter winters together with heavier downfalls of rain in the summer can lead to flooding. That's from groundwater and rivers, but also especially in urban areas, we can suffer from surface water flooding, which is where our drainage systems can become overwhelmed. So we need to be conscious of the impacts that climate change is going to bring us, but also what we need to do, what are the causes of that. So just about everything we consume has a carbon emission and a water impact. And so again, water's coming up again, that too has a carbon impact. So by reducing our water consumption, we can reduce carbon emissions. And when we think of carbon and water, we think of this broadly in two categories. So we have, for example, operational carbon, which is the carbon that we emit at the point we're using something. So for instance, when we turn on the TV, but also embedded carbon, which is the carbon that's associated with the production of the TV itself, and a similar for water. So we'll have, say, operational water, that's the water we're using at point of use, but also there's water embodied in the things that are produced. So we'll just use a couple of examples to go through that. So I'm going to start out with something that nearly everybody's got these days, and that's a mobile phone. So if we think of the carbon associated with the mobile phone, we're probably charging that, say, once a day, maybe once every 2 days. And phones are actually quite efficient, so we might think they're not using much energy. But if we then start to consider what's supporting the use of that phone, we're looking at data centres and mobile networks. And soon that carbon associated with what we're doing with our phone adds up to the point where it's using more than a refrigerator on an annual basis. Or to give a sort of equivalence to that, you might be thinking of a flight between London and New York, same emissions. But we've also got a water footprint that's associated with that phone. And we asked you at the top in the poll how much water you thought was associated with a mobile phone. Do we have any results from that, please? Okay, so the amount of water that's used in producing a mobile phone, and that's sort of manufacture and production, that's around 9 bathtubs full. So something such as a mobile phone that we may not necessarily associate as having a water footprint, in fact does. That's a sort of the embodied part, the bit that we don't see, is almost invisible to us. Another quick example is something, again, we probably all have, cotton t-shirts. They're using around 2,700 litres of water per t-shirt. And that's just in the manufacture of it. That's before we start washing it in the home. From a carbon perspective, if we look at the point from production right the way through to the end user, so We're then looking at a carbon footprint, still be variable, but around 8.7 kilograms of CO2. Now that might not seem a lot, but if you start to consider around 2 billion t-shirts are made globally annually, then it all adds up. But what about our direct water consumption? So the water we're using here in home. Well, in the UK, the average person is using around 143 litres of water a day. That's drinking water, but also when we're having a shower. So a power shower might be using around 13 litres of water per minute. When we're flushing the toilet, that's about 5 litres per flush. And we'll be using water in many ways throughout the home, including washing machines, doing the washing up, watering our gardens or washing cars. It all adds up so that across the UK, every day around 14,000 million litres of water are being provided by water companies for public supply. The water supply has a carbon footprint, and treating wastewater so it can be recycled back into the environment also has a carbon footprint. In fact, the annual emissions of the water sector in 2018 were around 3.1 million tonnes of carbon. Water is heavy, and pumping it around uses huge amounts of energy, which results in carbon emissions. And to treat water to drinking standard, and so that we can safely recycle it back into the environment, also add to emissions through biological processes that are used for that treatment process, but again, through energy use, our treatment works. However, the emissions that are associated with cleaning water to drinking standard or for recycling back into the environment is only actually a small portion of the emissions that are associated with water. And most of that comes from water use in the home, primarily through heating of water. So we're there looking at about 80 to 90% of emissions from water coming from domestic use. So let's just think a bit about that relationship between water, carbon and climate. The increased demand for water could lead to an increase in carbon emissions, which can contribute towards climate change, and climate change can in turn lead to unpredictable weather, which again can impact on water sustainability. So as a water and water recycling company, Anglican Water need to be mindful of the challenges that climate change is going to bring us, but also of the impacts we have through our operations. Using the latest climate predictions, we're able to plan for the longer term so that we're able to maintain reliable and sustainable sources of water and keep providing for our customers. It also helps us build for the future to ensure that our sites and assets, our business, are better able to cope with the challenges of climate change through droughts and extreme weather events. So an example of this might be if we're building new sewerage to cope with growth demand, new housing developments, we think about what the future is going to bring us, how climate change might impact the size of sewer that we might need to build, or we can introduce sustainable drainage systems so the water is able to make it back into the ground, or that we can slow the flow and be better able to manage it through our water treatment works. That's how we have to prepare for climate change, but we also need to work hard to reduce our emissions. And so in 2019, along with the other English water companies, we set an ambition as a sector to be carbon net zero by 2030. And net zero means balancing out the emissions we put into the atmosphere to those we can draw down. A key component to achieving net zero is about reducing our emissions in the first place. So we run efficiency schemes to try and make all our treatment processes and our pumping as efficient as we possibly can, and therefore reduce the amount of energy we use and therefore reduce the amount of carbon. And another option we are looking at as Anglican Water is to generate 44% of our energy from renewables by 2025. And we'll do that through the use of biogas engines, wind turbines and solar arrays. And an example of this is one of our newest arrays at Grafham Water. So here there are around 40,000 solar panels, and it's our largest array. It'll generate enough power to provide a quarter of the power for our largest water treatment works. That's Grafham Water, our largest solar array to date, and that's one of over 200 that we hope to deliver across the next 2 years, all of which will help us to get closer to our target of net zero by 2030. And with that, I'll hand you back to Caroline.
So thank you. I'm getting a message to tell me that you can't actually see me, which I apologise for, but I will try and do. That's okay. So our vision, what are we going to ask you to do? We cannot do this alone. We need your help. Elizabeth reminds us that we need water for everything. So whether it's from the clothes you're wearing or from the mobile phone that you might be holding in your hand, the 9 bathtubs of water. So our vision to you, let's get the message out there. Our purpose is to bring environmental and social prosperity to our region, and we do that through our Love Every Drop. And you might be thinking, well, what does that mean to me? Well, actually, if we could all reduce our water usage, or reduce what we are doing, we can help reduce our carbon emissions. And by doing that, we can help to have a happier, healthier planet. And so our ask to you is very simple. Our call to you, if you can move the slide on for me, Elizabeth, our call to you, get to social media. You are the voice of the future. You are the generation of the future. Please talk to people in a way in which they will want to hear. Take to Twitter. Maybe you can be talking to them about reducing 2 minutes in the shower, reducing your water, reducing the water heating, which in turn will reduce your carbon emissions. So hashtag shower pledge. Or maybe the next time you're going into the shop and you think, shall I have that new t-shirt? Well, do you need that 2,700 litres of water? Or I'm getting a pair of jeans. Do you need those 1,500 litres of water? Think, can you upcycle? Hashtag stop fast fashion. Or maybe take to TikTok, a great way of maybe sharing that message in an engaging, creative way. We really want to see how you can get that message out. Please be our voice. And don't forget your MPs, our call to leaders. Water homes, make them efficient, whether that's from the bricks upwards, through sustainable drainage, to water storage. And homeowners or home occupiers, give them green grants, ability to be able to go out there and get water efficient products in. And even simple things, going in, buy a new dishwasher or washing machine. I don't know how much water they use. Labeling, so we can have a comparison between those products, make an informed choice about what we want to buy. So please be our voice, and if you can work with us to reduce that water usage and get that messaging out there, maybe together we will have water, but it won't be too much. We will have water, but maybe it won't be not enough. We will have water and it will be just right. With your help, we can do that. We don't have any time for any questions, but please, if you have put any into the chat, we will be able to reply to those for you on the website. If you are interested in all the projects we are working on at Anglican Water, please do have a look at our website. Google Anglican Water, look at our carbon pledge, our plastics pledge, our pollutions pledge. Please do have a look and see what we're doing. And don't forget, Google Education Anglican Water. We have a huge amount of online resources which you can download for free, ranging everywhere from how we clean the water through to water audits, climate packs, sustainable drainage. Please do take advantage of our resources, they are there. Thank you for listening. Please get our message out. Let's get viral. Thank you to Elizabeth. Thank you to everybody for listening. And we hope you've enjoyed this and enjoy the rest of your time on the summit.
Thank you.